One really common question in podcasting is how do you name your episodes? How do you title your episodes to really draw people in, but also to get found in search? I want to show you a couple of examples here and why you should not necessarily learn from the top podcasters out there. I'll show you one top podcaster who is succeeding despite the way he names his episodes and not because of them. Let's jump into it. So this came about because I was in our Podcraft community and it was a question from one of our members asking how to title your episode, saying how to make an episode for Spotify. And an extra question, do you think it's smart to have a different title for YouTube than Spotify or any other podcast directory? Just to answer that very quickly first, I don't think there's a real reason to name your podcast differently. I think search, I think engagement, I think your goals here in titling your episodes are to really draw people in. So it's to have a title that makes people want to listen. But equally, it's to be search friendly, to be found in the search on all of those platforms. And search on YouTube, search in Apple Podcasts, search in Spotify, all works in a very similar way. We never know the real secret sauce behind the scenes, but it works in a similar way in all platforms. So let's look at common mistakes here. Ones that defy what I was talking about there, ones that defy that goal around engagement, around getting clicks, around persuading people to listen, and around being friendly for search. So I was having a quick look through iTunes, looking for some shows that do episode titles well. Can't vouch for the quality of this show, but it does come from TED and PRX, so likely they put a bit of work into it. But the names of the episodes here stood out to me well. Now, what do you want in an episode name? I think a great episode name really defines a problem, defines a pain that somebody has, or creates some kind of curiosity at least. If you're teaching, if you're solving problems, if you're motivating people, then finding that problem can generally be quite easy. You know, there's some pain, there's some problem, some difficulty a person has that you can help them with. But even if it's entertainment, if it's something like comedy or it's news, then maybe it's around, you know, that curiosity instead, grabbing attention. Now this one here, How to Be a Better Human. Look at these titles. So we've got things like how to. How to is a really common one. I mean, that's a pain, isn't it? I want to know how to do this thing. That's what I type into Google or Apple Podcasts or whatever. I type in how to do this, and you've got a bunch of them here. So how to answer your biggest questions with data, how to have curious conversations in dangerously divided times. Those kind of how to titles are brilliant. Then you've got ones that create curiosity as well. There is no grief starter pack. That's like, oh, I don't know what that's about exactly, but I get the idea because it's around grief. It's around how do you get over grief, that kind of stuff. But there's curiosity in that there's not one way to do it. How to take care of the people that take care of us. So that gives you an idea. Your idea for podcast episode titles is really to ask a question or to say how to directly what you're going to solve. The questions are great, actually. If you can actually type in like how to solve, how to grow a podcast, how can I grow a podcast, or how can I choose, what is the best podcast mic out there? That's a really good example. For example, people will type that into search, but equally if they have that problem, that question will stand out to them. This is the cool thing here, because if you really solve that problem for people, generally it will match the terms or the questions that they're typing into search, and therefore you're more likely to be found easier too. So that's the general principle around how to name your episodes. Curiosity, problems, questions. Really think about what people are struggling with, and that is all you put in your title, or at least it's at the start of the title. Now, who is it I was talking about that has episode titles that you really shouldn't learn from? Well, one of the top podcasters on the planet, one of the most successful shows out there, Tim Ferriss. Now, I'm a huge Tim Ferriss fan. I love his books. I love the content he puts out. So please don't take this as criticism, because he has succeeded beyond what nearly anyone on the planet can expect with podcasting. Probably has forgotten more about podcasting than I've ever known. But I do believe you can learn a bit from his titles here in what not to do. One of which is episode numbers. Now, something that's not recommended by Apple anymore. You shouldn't really put the numbers in because they want to put the numbers in themselves. And other platforms as well, it doesn't necessarily fit in with the formatting on Spotify, on YouTube, and elsewhere. And more than anything else, it takes up space. Like, nobody really cares that Tim's on episode number 649. Does that mean anything? The only reason you might think about putting that in is if you want to refer to old episodes and say, go back to episode 410 for my interview with blah, blah, blah. But even then, you could just say the name and you're still going to just search. You're still going to search in the player or something like that. And the thing with putting this in is that's 6 characters before you get to the main title. So it's a bit of information that is doing nothing to draw in the listener, and it's really taking up space. It means it takes away space from the rest of the title that is going to draw people in and make them listen. And in a similar vein, he does another thing that I don't recommend your average podcaster ever do, which is start your episode title with the name. In most cases, now Tim's an outlier here. Tim can get on the most famous people. So James Clear, really well known. Rick Rubin, really well known. So in some cases, if you do have somebody who's genuinely world famous or genuinely very famous in your area, maybe you do want to put the name in early, because that could draw some eyes. But in most cases, we're interviewing people in our industry that are not necessarily that well known. And therefore, the name actually means nothing to quite a few people in your audience. In which case, the name is taking away space again from the problem that's being solved, the question that's being asked. So again, I would remove the numbers, I would remove the name, and I would get straight to the problem being solved. I would start the episode title with this: The Creative Act, Overcoming Creative Blocks, Developing Your Perceptions. Or with James Clear, it's Simple Strategies for Building and Breaking Habits. That's a good title. That should be right at the front. Now, here you can see that a lot of that problem question has been cut off on Tim's titles. So even on a big screen here, I'm missing quite a bit of the value that's offering. So if I've never heard of Rick Rubin, I'm seeing a couple of benefits, but a lot of it's been cut off. So he's missing the opportunity to draw me in here. Even more so on a mobile, on a phone. And that is where the vast majority of people listen to podcasts. Most likely, if somebody's looking at this on a portfolio phone screen, up and down, they're only going to see the number, they're going to see the name, and maybe a bit of this description. Similar with James, they're maybe only going to see the number, James Clear, a bit of Atomic Habits. They're not going to see any of the simple strategies for building. So that is why it's so important to get the question, the how-to, the problem, the solution, the uniqueness, really draw people in from the very first character of your episode titles. Equally, again, nobody knows the absolute magic sauce behind search, but generally search engines, Google included, prioritize the stuff that comes first. So if you want your keywords, the question, the keywords, the themes that you write about here to show up in search, put that right at the start of the title. And there's a chance, again, we don't know exactly how Apple search works, YouTube search works, but the general opinion is that the earlier it is in the title, the higher priority it is. So get that to the start. Now, there's no reason you couldn't have the description, as in the creative act, overcoming creative blocks, this part here, the problem, the question, first, and then put the name, and then maybe the number at the very end if you were really keen to put that in. There's no reason you couldn't do that. But what I'm saying is that it's key to put the real engagement part, the real hook, the real why you should listen to the very start of the episode title for the vast majority of podcasters. Again, Tim can get away with this because he's got really famous interviewees. I'm not too sure about the numbers. I would still recommend he removes those numbers. But the names he can get away with because they're famous. But for any of us average podcasters, we want to put this title in straight away. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers the question around episode titles, gives you an idea of how you should be titling your episodes for maximum engagement, as in drawing people in, persuading them to listen, and for helping you appear more in search, whether it's in Spotify, whether it's in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or YouTube, something like that. If you've enjoyed this content, please do check out Alitu. Alitu is our podcast maker app. Helps you to make your podcast in a much more easy way. It does call recording. It cleans up your audio for you automatically. It's got audio editing built right in, podcast specific editor, and it has hosting built in as well, up to 1,000 downloads a month, which covers most of us as average podcasters. all built into one app, Alitu, where you can create your whole podcast, start to finish, and get it published. Go over to alitu.com to check it out. That's alitu.com to check it out. And please do hit subscribe and get alerts for future videos so you can get more tips like this, hopefully to help you grow your podcast. I've been Colin Gray from thepodcasthost.com. I'll see you on a future video.